All right, welcome to episode 3 of Reg Wars. Today I am joined by Lavin. Thanks for coming on.
What's up? Happy to be on.
Yeah, thank you. It feels fake to say this, but we quote unquote just finished up our spring championship series, even though it's probably been 2 weeks, and I'm using the excuse of the series finishing up to not play. I'm stretching that excuse a little bit too long. But we recently finished up the series, and you had quite the showing. You were number one in terms of fantasy points, in terms of final tables, wins, cashes, all the potential metrics. You showed out and you took down the trophy. What was that like?
It was fun. I mean, it's quite the grind. It's a longer series, a lot of high buy-ins, a lot of low buy-ins, a lot of mixed games where you feel lost. I mean, it's got everything. A lot of trash talking, but you know, to put up that fantasy performance, it was pretty happy. It's tough to be happy in poker, so you got to take your wins when you can get them.
Yeah, the Scoop series spells or feels really special in Pennsylvania just because of how like tight knit the community is, and it feels like a community event almost more than like a poker series where everyone kind of just has a bunch of side bets on whether or not certain teams of people are going to do well, or the old versus young prop bet where each side puts up $5,000 head to head.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's basically like a community series that just so happens to coincide with Scoop instead of vice versa.
Yeah,
I've been saying Stars should be giving the Discord rake back for how many extra bullets we get fired into some of these events.
it's probably absurd the amount of rake that is solely contributed to like the fantasy series and the side bets.
From fantasy, absolutely. I mean, there's so many tournaments. Sure, why not? What's another one?
Yeah, you're
And a bunch of people in tournaments that they probably wouldn't play normally, and you know, it's pretty crazy. But it's good to see that it's still building and it hasn't like hit its peak or plateaued at all.
that's
Yeah, I mean, part of this at the beginning, it was like, oh, teams fell off a little bit, and number of entrants for our fantasy series went down a little bit, but I think that was an all-time high last one, and right before Interstate couldn't have happened at a better time, and it seems like we're peaking, which is good to see as a community.
Yeah, definitely. So during the series, you played, I'm assuming every day, right?
Yeah, played every day. A couple of them, late reg on phone because of other obligations, and then switch to the PC when I get home.
Got it. What's the downtime look like when you're kind of have a 2-3 week series blocked off? You're playing every day. What do you do when you're not playing? How do you like to get off the computer?
I mean, I love golfing. It was very unfortunate that this year we had a shitty weather spring that kind of stopped us a little bit. In the past we've had some very nice days in March, and I think the series is maybe like a week or two somewhere a little bit earlier than some of the past ones. And normally it'd be wake up, golf, little break, poker, or wake up, gym, something else. But we made do. We got out indoors a couple of times, went to the simulator, but trying to find a balance that way, so it's not just wake up, turn on PC, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Another aspect of the series that I'm curious in is how you kind of balance the two sides of it, as you're firing each bullet independently for the EV of it, but then you also have some weird alterations to the EV of each bullet, meaning you have added side bets versus people for like total points, you have added incentives for the old versus young bet. So how does that kind of factor into your mind when you're on bullet number 10 in a PKO, with like 5 minutes left to late range,
I
firing the
mean,
other stuff?
thankfully for me, that's basically how I treat tournaments anyway.
Cool.
So it's not that much of a change for me.
Nice.
Maybe I'll take a couple negative EV flips, and I'm not shoving any two cards type stuff, but maybe not folding a hand I'm supposed to fold, and I'll take a flip with Jack 10 suited or something, hopefully. But for me, I don't really track my buy-ins and bullets that closely, so it's kind of more of a oh my god, I was in for 8. Like you don't really know sometimes, especially when you have a bunch of tables up. You'll be like, oh, I don't think this tournament's going well, and it's not going well. But it's not until you look at the lobby on break or at FT, hopefully, that I even realize how many I'm in for.
Yeah, yeah. So you don't adjust like too much to kind of the max gamble where maybe you call off like I don't know, like a medium pocket pair for like 50 big blinds or something, kind of early in a tournament.
No, I didn't really do that much. You know, I kind of generate those spots enough just by playing, but you know, there was definitely some like $10 hyper turbos and stuff where it was like, you know, 12 big blinds, 4 minutes left. Like let's just flick it in. I'm sure I'm gaining EV by trying to get a couple starting stacks in there before late reg ends.
Yeah.
But you know, didn't do that in any of the one case.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite like tournament run during the scoop time? I mean, obviously the higher buy-in stuff is going to be bigger money wise, but I'm not sure if there was any fun
Oh,
run where you were shit talking a lot with against Team Young or you're something like that.
I mean that's tough to say. I think the 1K freeze out I won. I know Jeff was there battling, and I think there was somebody else from Team Young, and that was really before we started to pull away. So closing that one out felt good. It was, I don't want to say an easy final table. It wasn't an easy final table. It was a like comfortable, natural final table. I didn't really find myself. The cards did not put me in tough spots. Let me put it that way. Like, you know, it's very easy raise folds, very easy raise calls, very easy, you know, open any two cards. Like stuff like that. It was just one of those tables. Like when I went back and reviewed it, that it kind of played itself for me. And it's sometimes nice to have those. You know, it's like, oh, I didn't really have to do anything out of, you know, the normal. I didn't have any crazy close spots, and you know, always fortunate to run good along the way too.
Yeah. Definitely feels a lot smoother when you know you have those easy race folds. You don't have to get sucked out on or sucked out on someone.
No, that was, you know, I did review a bunch of the tournaments after the series ended, and you know, there's still kind of the weird part about poker is like a couple of my final tables, I just picked up no hands the whole tournament. Like the one tournament, I got aces and kings one time each, and I won the blinds, and that was it. Like the whole tournament. But like I also just didn't get coolered, and like sometimes the game's like picking up a bunch of king 10 suiteds, 10-9 suiteds, and like winning pots and not running into the nuts, and it's not even like picking up big hands. It's kind of like, you know, looking at it that way, it's kind of weird to think about how another side of poker variance, in addition to all the rest, is just not running into the nuts, not having to flip for your stack because you don't get hands, but like having enough chips and hands that like still allow you to win pots. It's weird.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a different type of variance that you know doesn't come into mind as much. I remember, I think I want to say it was Jeff in his run in the like Colossus or Millie Maker a few years ago. I remember he
Yeah.
described that kind of as something very similar to that, where you know the variance is just getting your raise folds through. It's not having to take a flip every hour and then you're holding it.
Exactly. It's a, you know, it's hard to conceptualize it, but like, you know, just don't run into the nuts. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's things like that. Like every time I was bluffing, I got a great turn card, and they bet. I felt like, you know, just the very natural things that make poker, which can be, you know, a little anxiety inducing, a little less anxious. You know what I mean? Things like that. And I do appreciate that. Like that's another part of an upswing in that like you won't see on PT4. Like, you know, I actually ran below expectation for the series, even though I know no one on Team Young will believe me. But it's like I lose my all-ins during late reg when I can rebuy. I win them after. I lose the ones for, you know, 40 during late reg. I wins the one for 20 after. You know what I mean? Like things like that you. As far as I know, there's no way to like look at, but you have to realize there's other forms of run good, and you know I'm definitely appreciative of it.
And experiencing the run good is kind of weird, and in a sense, in a series, obviously there is a large amount of variance, especially as the higher buy-ins go up because you can't get in a ton of volume. But if you're playing
Yeah,
a long time every day during a series, the variance kind of does start to like level itself out a little bit. If you're playing, I mean, Scoop obviously a little bit bigger fields than normal in PA, but the variance weathers itself out. Like I haven't looked at all my stats, but I mean, looking at every tournament, including like the satellites and the non-scoop stuff that I was playing at the time, I want to say I got in like 100K hands, and you know that's a pretty good sample
it,
for.
it was a lot. No, it smoothed out pretty evenly.
Yeah, that's.
Um,
Do you know how much, like how many entries or how many hands you played over Scoob? Did you look at those numbers at all?
I don't. I could probably look as we continue to talk.
Yeah,
And
I'm kind of curious about what that looks like. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure the Team Old chat was pretty fun, kind of in the background. We only got to experience some of the banter in the public channels in the PA Discord, but I'm sure there was a lot of fun stuff happening in the back.
So I haven't updated this, and it says 35,000 hands, but I know I purged some of them from the total knockouts and things like that.
Yeah.
But
pretty damn good.
I mean, that doesn't count mixed games and things like that, so I would think it's north of that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Because like there's a good amount of mixed games on the schedule, so
yeah,
it's hefty. Were there any good slow rolls that you got in on Team Young?
I mean, there were a bunch. I mean, it was kind of like it's kind of snowballed into no one's safe. You know, it's you got aces, you got the nuts like on the river, and somebody jams. Like, sure, why not? Anybody can catch these hands, sort of thing. But I had a good double Team Young slow roll. I did pass on one, and I double like two of them in one hand. I got to slow roll over them. That was nice.
Okay.
I got Jeff and Napoli in one hand. I wish I remembered who this was, but I had a chance to slow roll someone Team Young right at end of late reg, and I didn't do it. Like I could have slow rolled enough to carry it out of late reg, and I passed on it. And I meant to like make a post about this and be like, you guys should be grateful. I could have ended you before you could rebuy, but I didn't.
I love pulling that move, just kind of like tanking and making sure they don't get the reg. It's very kind of you, though.
Yeah, I know. I meant to give myself credit for it, but I completely forgot until you asked me about good slow rolls, and then
Yeah, well, you got your.
Does that help with the lighting a little bit? I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
Leave the PT4 up as my my makeshift backlight.
Perfect. I love it. Did you have any issues with the deal button at final tables? I know it was a giant issue at some other ones.
I did not. I wasn't chopping any of the tournaments I played.
Yeah,
so it wasn't an issue. Yeah, the 1K we were talking about chopping, but we were very deep, and I had the other two. I think like 4-1 or 4-2, something like that. So we played it out, and it played out naturally. So, but that was a whole mess and a tough look for stars. I tried to chop a couple tournaments on recently this past week that we just had, and it was just didn't work for me this time. Cancel, relog in. Oh, it worked for me, didn't work for like this is tilting me to the point that I don't really love the chop anyway. And I was like, you guys, one more try, and then we're playing this out. I was on Sunday, and like it was the Sunday high roller, and it took, I want to say 8 tries with Philly Tax Guy, and I'm forgetting the third person, and
so brutal. I mean,
it's pissing me off just thinking about it.
Like it's one thing to have this issue be a thing, which it definitely shouldn't, but have told the exact bug to, I feel like, every possible person on Stars we could, right? Like we've messaged support, we've talked to Kevin in our channels. It's been a thing for a year. How is this still a thing, and how is it happening on like the biggest stage?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's probably a lot to ask, and they don't have the staff for it, but you would think an exception could be made for the biggest series to have somebody on hand. I think I mentioned that in the Discord, but
I think it's pretty.
Just have somebody monitor the main event and the high roller, and it's like, if you want to chop, pause it, manually and figure that stuff out. Because, I think the one chop they had to do a workaround, privately to move the money around. I'm like, that's just so tough. And luckily, I guess that it wasn't I don't want to say random, but like, a recreational player who was put in that sort of spot and like cost themselves EV by not being able to chop. Like what a bad look that is for the site, the community, and all this. It's like, hey, I have a chance for a giant score, my biggest score online, and I can't chop.
I think it's quite a sick benefit of like the PA community existing and like the Discord existing, just being able to kind of know the guys you were playing against and be like, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I had to share Discord names with the people that were in the 2,500 who didn't have the other one's names to connect to them, to like be like, hey, are we cool chopping at this stack for that? Not, I mean.
Yeah, I saw that in the chat.
It shouldn't have to come to that, but I'm happy that they were able to work it out, but. That's hopefully that's solved for interstate, right? Because the
Yeah.
prize pools are only going to get bigger, and you think that would make people more inclined to shop.
Oh, one can hope, but I have a feeling they'll probably have a lot of bigger issues to fry first.
That's completely fair.
Which, speaking of, yeah, we just heard quite literally a few minutes before we started recording this that multi-state is coming out next Monday, so that's pretty sick. Is your plan kind
Yeah.
of to grind that for a little bit, or are you going to go to Vegas at all during the summer? What's that kind of like?
So I only have one trip booked to Vegas right now, and I'm doing the very start of the series. And
Okay.
my inclination was to hold off on doing anything else until we got news about interstate. And now it's like, man, like, am I going to have more FOMO being out in Vegas and missing interstate at home? Like, they only have WSOP out there. So it's like, I don't know. I'm probably going to stick with my plan of just the first 10 days roughly, and then go back out for the main.
Got it. Okay. That's pretty good then.
But
Pretty good
I mean,
live volume.
yeah, I mean, it's very easy to get in your volume out there. You have 6 casinos running tournaments. You can, I've done 4 casinos in a day before. It's definitely there if you want it.
4 casinos in a day. What was
Yeah.
that like?
Well, it wasn't fun, but bust day 2 WSOP event, walk to Venetian, bust that, then go to. Oh my god, I can't remember. And then I went to Win and Max Thurs and lost that, and then I think it was I want to say Golden Nugget or the series that the place that normally does the mixed games, but they also do tournaments. And they had a night flight. They played that and lost. I'm like, this is fun. I'm trying. It's gonna be a lot easier online to click 4 tournaments and reg and bust them on 4 sites than it is live. But
Feels a lot better than doing the
it does.
properties.
Walk of shame in between properties in 100-degree weather. Your backpack starts, adding on sweat, sticking to you, and you're like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Humans aren't supposed to be out here like this.
I know. I keep thinking about that because, I mean, obviously a lot of poker players go to move in Vegas, and I don't think there's a world where I would ever live in Vegas. Like, just being around that constant heat is the last thing I want to be in.
I personally, despite how red my face is from being outside in the 78-degree temperature right before this interview, but I love the heat. It's just completely different when you're on the strip and it's concrete and there's no wind going in between the buildings.
Yeah.
Like, I've done Scottsdale in 105, 110 and played golf, and it's different because you're outdoors and there's moving air. So it's not the concrete amplifier and everything else that comes with it. But,
Okay.
I enjoyed the fall WSOP that we had in, I guess that was 2020.
Oh,
that was beautiful. One. Oh my god, it was 55 degrees outside. It was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll walk to whatever casino you guys want to walk. This is amazing.
Oh, I was like just getting into poker when that like happened. Was that in like November or was that like earlier than that?
I want to say it was like late October into November. Okay. And it was beautiful. 70 and sunny down to like 55 at night, and it was great. I loved it. I was like, so you guys want to keep this going in the future?
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I would be much more likely to go if it was kind of closer to the winter time. But
I think even some recreational people mentioned it's like, oh yeah, I mean, I guess summer break for some teachers and stuff worked, but like, working around Thanksgiving or whatever other holidays, Columbus Day, I can't remember the exact ones, but I do remember other people like, oh yeah, of course I can take off to come out here now, and I'm like, maybe they accidentally found something and then. Next year right back to normal.
Yeah, the influence of the summer might be enough. People just generally getting off for that kind of temperature.
That's kind of what I figured, but yeah. You think Vegas would just get more tourism naturally in the summer anyway, so I think rooms were cheaper in the fall, and from a poker perspective, it was way better.
Yeah. Well, I imagine if you're going to stay a little bit for the merge instead of going out to Vegas, will you be doing a lot more streaming with Poker.org, kind of working with them?
Well, right now they're running into the YouTube issue with gambling, and they got a strike on the channel, so streaming on there has been temporarily paused. But back in the day, before you came around, I was streaming for fun during, I guess, like the second wave of COVID, and we were inside all the time. And I promised, I'm like, hey, if we ever get interstate, I'll stream for a week straight. So I'd better figure out my Twitch and set up some stuff, so I'm able to do that. I only have, what is it, 8 days now?
Yeah, you signed yourself up for something.
I did. I'm a man of my word. I could. Is it next Monday? Is that how quick it is?
Yeah.
28th. Oh my God! So I have 5 days. Okay. Well, I better get on that.
Subathon in 5 days.
Yeah.
That's good.
But I'll be happy to do it.
So, what kind of got you into streaming initially? If you did it like before you started doing the poker work stuff more recently, what was that kind of motivation?
I gotta be honest. I don't even remember. It was more of like a fun community thing, like have some drinks stuck inside during the pandemic, and
yeah,
playing the Sleevey Slam at 1:30 and drunk and having side bets with the chat, things like that. It was just more of a fun thing, and we didn't even have WSOP or BetMGM, I don't think, even at the very beginning of when I started. So it was more of like a COVID produced, everybody's streaming. Like, yeah, sure, I'll hop on. Like, I think I streamed some Fortnite or FIFA too. Like, just for fun. Like, it was something to do, and it felt very natural to me. So I wouldn't say I kept up with it. I definitely wasn't very scheduled or regular, but I enjoyed it. And then it came to a point where it was like, oh man, like I don't think I can do this with the amount of tables I'm playing now. And I wasn't very comfortable. And then I kind of put like the poker career first.
Yeah. It's pretty pure at first. I mean, even when I started playing poker, I was pretty dog shit, obviously. And I was like streaming for friends sometimes. Like I satellited into this, like, I think it was like a 250 main on Stars. And I only played like $5-10 tournaments ever. So it was like the biggest thing in the world. And I was like streaming to all my friends at college and, friends from high school. I'm like, yeah, okay, this is kind of fun.
Yeah,
but it definitely gets to that point though, where if you're streaming to a community of poker players that you're in, it becomes a little bit more. The competitive aspect of it is a little hard because people see your cards, people see how you play. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I know Schwibs, when I was talking about this with him, he was again also used to stream. I'm assuming back kind of in the same time period you were streaming.
Yeah.
But he stopped because he kind of said he doesn't want his game being displayed for that many people.
I think there was definitely a point in the past where it would have been probably more detrimental than. Well, it's very hard for it to be completely positive. I mean, there's small accountability factors of, hey, don't be a dumbass and just click the call button because you want to see their cards because people are watching. It's like, I know this is a fold, I'll fold because people, you know what I mean? There's definitely a little bit of accountability that I think can help you in streaming, but I'm pretty comfortable with where my game's at now that I don't, I can't imagine anybody who's played, 100,000 hands with me is going to learn too much new. They might learn something new by, things I say incorrectly, my thought process, things like that. But like, I'd have to think pretty hard. And I've kind of kept it, I've kind of kept the Monday streams mostly fun. They're, a bunch of PKOs and things where I can just, stick around and not take it too seriously. I've had some day twos that I've streamed that haven't gone well, and so it's like, well, there's not too much for you guys to see because I lost, third hand. So, maybe in the future it's something that I dial down the volume of streaming, but I think once a week for fun. But especially with Interstate, you don't really know what sort of possibilities are out there with regards to streaming. Mm-hmm. It seems like there's a lack of streamers in the regulated market in general, but like specifically people that play all sites and all buy-ins. So like I definitely think there's a niche there that I can fill. That David K, when he did it, it was mostly cash and mostly in the afternoon. I know he switched to MTTs and now he's between sites or jobs, whatever you want to call it. But there, I guess Caitlin Komeski, I think that's her name, is streaming MTTs, but that seems more of like a fun sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, I definitely think there's a niche there that I won't say no to in the future if people come asking.
That's awesome. And I think that's like pretty necessary. I wanted to ask you kind of about the role of streaming in the US post-merge and how it can, potentially grow poker to, rather than just 2xing or 2.5xing the guaranteeds, maybe make it a 3x or get more people into poker to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, like if you want the instant jump, it probably needs to be somebody that comes over from somewhere else with an audience that is just so happens to be in, I'm just, making shit up, but like, you know, a Fortnite streamer, and he's also plays poker. I'm thinking of Nate Hill. I didn't even realize who I was thinking of when I made this up, but he streamed poker in PA before on Stars, and I was like, oh my god, like,
Oh, really?
30,000, 20,000 people are watching him play, you know, sit and goes on Stars, and I'm like, this could be so good, and he probably doesn't even realize like the effect that he could have because he was doing it for fun. Like, it's a, you know, it's a fun thing for him, but like, naturally, organically, it's going to be tough for somebody to have that sort of impact. But I feel like if we want to get to where we want to get, we probably need somebody. I mean, I can't even probably quantify how much like Lex, Spraggy, Fenton, like those sort of people contribute to the ecosystem over there and getting people into poker.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm not even like thinking of the other markets with other sponsored pros. So
I mean, it seems like Stars really values like that team of streamers, right? Like Spraggy, Lex,
yeah,
like Fenton, like those guys. They definitely bring a ton of eyes onto Stars in terms of the online players.
yeah, I agree. You know, I'm not as familiar with the other markets, but like I'm also not familiar because they don't promote themselves like Stars do. You know, I always see the, you know, even if I'm not checking Twitch or checking YouTube to see when they're live, like I'll see past videos or clips and, you know, things like that that get me, like, you know what I mean? I'm in the community, I care about it, and I'm still getting it pushed on me. You know what I mean? So it's got to be something that's working and would also touch the eyes of people who are not as already, like, you know, in there.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think there was some discussion in the Discord a while ago, and I remember I think it might have been, I can't remember who said it, but somebody kind of hinted at the importance of the person who's streaming poker also has to be they have to be a character, right? I think
Yeah.
Daniel Peterson is his name, I think.
I see his clips almost every day on social media, and I'm like, how is this person real? And then I check the buy-ins, and they're playing Lena heads up. So I mean, whatever he's doing seems fantastic. Yeah, that's exactly. I'm like, all right, well, you know, I gotta get some disco lights and some strobe lights and shit, and start dancing. You know, but
he's playing all like the highest, like he's playing like 5Ks.
I never heard of him until like probably a month ago, and at first I couldn't even tell if it was him playing because he seemed so carefree and you know what I mean, all this persona, and then he's like, you know, I don't want to say dicking around, but like having a really good time at the table and being kind of absurd. And then it took a while for me to realize that like, oh, that's a 2,500, that's a 10K on GG, and I'm like, oh man, this guy's fucking awesome.
Yeah, he's a good balance of the very entertaining side, but also like very attractive to the grinder, the studier, that kind of person, getting to see, you know, some type of skill on display. I think he's kind of just like a perfect combo of that.
Yeah,
I've
kind of thought about that. Exactly. It's kind of, you know, I've thought about this before. It's like, do I really want to be the streamer that like tries to break down every spot and makes it very enjoyable for the, you know, the art of the game lover, the technical, you know, the people that like want to get in the nitty gritty, or do I want to be a fun streamer that has a couple beverages and watches people in the community? Like, it's tough to say because I don't even know how you'd go about answering that. But I think like I think that person is probably, you know, exactly what we need, a personality that can kind of blend the two.
I think it differs per person. Like I've heard Lex and Draft Ganger talk about it a little bit. Lex is definitely on the side of he wants to kind of be more himself on stream. He doesn't want to play a character, so he kind of just keeps it mellow a lot, and that's intriguing for a lot of people, including me. But Draft Ganger is on the other side, is kind of like, I want to put on a performance. Like he leans into it a little bit more to get a little wild and do some fun stuff, like the 6.9 3 bets, or like, you know, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think Lex does it naturally, even without thinking about it. He's very blunt. He talks shit back to the chat when necessary. So I think like he doesn't need to put on a character. I think he has enough natural persona that's not something that he probably ever needs to think about. And he also just wants to be good. It's, you know, every time I see a video of him, he's studying with BBZ. He's grinding to be great at the game. You know what I mean? So I think that one speaks very naturally to me. But like, you know, I think he also does some prop bets and stuff. Like it's like, oh, knock out X amount of people or things like that. Or, you know, I think during COVID I would do fun stuff like that. It's like, you know, let's play the Big Ten and we have to limp everything. Like, you know what I mean? Like I think I did fun stuff like that. So I would have to get some people with more creativity to come up with some fun ideas like that, because I wouldn't mind doing that sort of stuff on stream. That'd be fun.
Yeah, hey, I mean, I think you would be a great representative for the PA community to be a streamer in that type of way. So I think you should go for it.
I'm sold. It's I have the setup I need to do it. I have no excuses.
Perfect. I also wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the pre-Black Friday days, because I am
Okay.
new to poker, don't know that much about what the games were like back then. So you've mentioned before on these poker org streams that you played a lot pre-Black Friday, you stopped a while, and then kind of got back into it around 2019 or something like that.
Yeah, March 2020. Easy date to remember.
Yeah, okay, that'll do it.
Yeah.
So give us new guys kind of an idea of what games were like. It was cool hearing you and Groon talk about it at the very end of the Scoop recap stream. But what really were these tournaments like? Like, what ROIs do you think were achievable? Was it kind of like the 90 man, 100 man, 80 man? I've heard those referenced a lot, and that seems like a pretty good alternative to like lowering the variance of 1,000-man fields. Was that kind of the approach? Like, what was that kind of like?
I kind of skipped them, but they were definitely very available. I kind of went straight from sit and goes as like the variance reducer right into MTTs, because sit and goes just felt more natural to me at the beginning of my poker career. It's like, I played 6-man sit and goes at home in my friend's basement, to learning that, playing a ton of them, playing a shit ton of volume, and mostly on full tilt. And then eventually I realized, there's more than one site I can be playing on here too, and working my way up that way. And then I was very fortunate in the connections I made to get introduced to better players, probably before I deserve it, if that makes sense, and was able to work myself up that way. Some of it you kind of forget until you talk about it. Like, I kind of forgot that there were no rebuys, like there was no re-entry. So it's like, when you bust the Sunday Million, you're just out. Like, it's like, like how absurd was I to think like, I can't believe I never had any results in the Sunday Million on Stars, when I probably paid it 40 times. Like, you know what I mean? It's very, I don't want to say dumb of me, but like, it's like, why were you ever hard on yourself for only getting like, a top 18 in this one tournament, when it was one bullet a week for one tournament? And, it kind of stuff like that didn't click. And, the rebuy add-on.
Like, no.
Yeah, that was the industry standard. Yeah. They had specific rebuy add-on tournaments that were just the best. Like, I'm going to be guessing numbers, but I think like I won the 30 rebuy add-on on Stars for 19K, like, or something crazy like that. The 50 rebuy add-on Stars on Sunday for 19K, and it was incredible. I think they had a $55 100K every single day on both sites.
That's wow.
I wish that the old tracking sites were still up so I could go and look at this and give you a better answer. But the old Pocket Fives was a nice way to do that, and then they had official poker rankings. I'm sure some people out there listening to this will remember that, but that had all your screen names and your rankings for the year, and very easy to look up tournaments. But it's tough to remember stuff like that about those days. Like, I can remember 3-betting or 5-bet calling Ace 9-0 for 50 big blinds back then, but I can't remember the structure of the tournament.
Was the meta of like a winning strategy back then just like pure aggression, just like 3-betting like
yes
20%, 6-betting 100%? Like, what?
Yeah, and like it really didn't even matter what your cards were. It was kind of like a giant game of chicken, of who can get in the last bet before somebody shoves. There wasn't much flop play. It took me a very long time coming back to poker to like learn how to play post flop. It's like, my strategy was, bet once. If they fight back, just fold. Like, it was very, 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 very different. It's been a tough adjustment, but my whole strategy was like, show so much aggression that they think you never have it, and then get paid when you do, or have somebody bluff into you and you just call. And like, it wasn't very good redlining, but it was kind of more normal back then. And the people who played correctly kind of were like frowned upon by the community. Like, oh my god, this guy defended Queen 10-0, 12 big blinds deep. What the hell's he doing? And that was a thing. And looking back on it, it's like, man, just like ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Proper 3-bet sizes were used by like 3 people, everybody was clicking everything, and if you saw a 8 big blind 3-bet from the small blind, you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like, it's massive. What am I gonna do? I can't call. I can't click it. Yeah, it's like I remember the guy's name was, I think it was Arjun Atwal Intervention, and he used to give me so much problems because he used massive, large 3-bet sizing that was completely standard and fine by today's standards.
Yeah, 3-bet to 7 from the button. What?
That's exactly. It's still. It took me a while, even coming back into poker, to realize like you can do that. You're allowed to do that. That's not bad.
So that must be quite a transition to make, kind of playing pre-Black Friday, playing online, stepping away from poker for a while.
Yeah.
COVID kicks up 2020, you hop right back into the games with this kind of same mindset you have from Black Friday.
Yeah.
How did it go initially, and what were the adjustments that you had to make, and how did you make those adjustments?
I mean, initially I was just playing like I used to, like ironically, some of the stuff was probably better then than like as I learned what I started to do. It's like I was probably naturally taking advantage of how people played without even realizing it. It's like, oh, like, everybody folded to me on the button. Of course I'll raise deuce 4-0. Like, you know what I mean? Things like that like I never even thought twice about. You know what I mean? Like, oh, 40 suited cutoff. I'm raising. I'm chip leader. Or like, I don't care what my cards are. I would 3-bet spots that I thought would look good, like heuristically. Like, oh, this guy has to play shove or fold. I don't care that I have 10-6 suited. I'm just going to 3-bet. You know what I mean? Things like that. That I unlearned and then realized afterwards. It's like, hey, there was probably like a reason things like that were good. Like I was putting people in tough spots, and then I started studying, and it was hell. It's like, man, I was so far off base with all of this shit, and having to learn to play post flop for more than one street, not fun, and then learning to play the one street that I was playing, even less fun. Like, you know what I mean? There was so much unlearning that had to be done before, like, I still don't feel comfortable with it. Like, it's still something I have to like consciously work on to get better.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the pass game is obviously pretty applicable, and especially for kind of Pennsylvania, which would be a new market in 2020. It's like you could probably do a lot of the same things that you were doing in the past and be fine.
Yeah.
Just like the wealth of new knowledge out there at the time, you can be like, all right, I was wrong or I was right, and there's probably a lot of humbling moments where you're like, oh, okay.
I mean, sometimes I'll see screenshots on my phone of like the first year that I was playing, and like, I was taking pictures of the screen, like, you know what I mean? Like, and seeing the hands that I was like questioning or sending to the people that I was talking to. And I'm like, what the hell was I doing? Like, it was just like, it's very funny to look back on, but obviously I think COVID was probably the softest fields we've gotten to this point in PA. Yeah. The prize pools were massive. It was, a very fortunate time for me to come back to poker and to be able to build a bankroll quickly in tournaments where somehow I had more experience than most of the player pool, despite not playing for 10 years, really.
You might have mentioned this on stream. What was that kind of process to getting back into poker? What brought you in initially?
I mean, I still love the game. I think that, there's a point where New Jersey got regulated online poker, and I had friends, a group of friends who were still into poker that were playing, and I played a little bit, but like, I was in college at the time, and it was like, oh, I ran $50 at the 2K, and like, I mean, I wasn't taking it very seriously. It wasn't something I still loved the game, but I basically wasn't until then that, I started taking it seriously. I bought some courses on, I think, like Run It Once and, started actually learning. And then from there, fortunate enough to build connections again in a different way and try to get back to how I was learning and studying and bouncing ideas off people pre-Black Friday and doing it again now.
Yeah. So sounds like during COVID and after COVID, a lot of your learning was mostly like kind of course oriented, or, getting teaching from a coach that you kind of paid for, like some pre-made content.
Yeah, it was all pre-made content. Like I probably even went too fast. If I could do it over again, I would have gone much slower. I would have made sure I learned all the basics before I jumped up to other stuff. It's tough to be like, oh, I'm fucking crushing stars. Why would I need to go back and practice the quote unquote basics when I'm doing well. And I wish I did, because like it would have saved me a lot more time in the future.
Yeah.
You know, it's more than just like, learning what GTO is and learning, the toy games and things like that, and learning what like I already knew what ranges are. I knew stuff like that, but I didn't really completely understand how it all fit together until much later.
Was there ever a point, I mean, I'm curious about this pre-Black Friday too, but post-Black Friday, kind of when you got into poker during COVID, did you ever think about hiring a coach, like a one-on-one coach or someone to work with or do a CFP or kind of that angle, or was it all kind of on your own?
No, it was kind of, it wasn't something that I thought I was even going to do full time until it started going well for me. It was more like, oh, I'm doing well and I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun, that sort of thing. And I was enjoying the learning on my own aspect. I would have been much better off definitely hiring a coach, but at that point it was more like building the bankroll and enjoying the game was priorities 1 and 2 for me, instead of, what probably would have actually been better off for me.
Yeah, I mean, enjoying the game is probably a healthy priority and a healthier one to have than some of the other ones, but
yeah, that's fair. But it's if I knew that this was something that I was going to be doing long term, I definitely could have built better foundations and fixed a lot of issues much quicker than me right now in 2025. I have a stack of note cards to practice my pre-flop ranges and flops, c-bet strategies on different boards. So, there's, it's
bringing out the flashcards for us.
It's in college I was the same way. Like, I could study the slides, I could, listen to lectures, but like, unless I wrote it down myself and like, it just, then it would click for me. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. I have a good memory, but it's not very good when it's overwhelmed. So it's like, hey, let's make this really simple for you. Instead of running through random, even if I like narrow down the drills, I don't really conceptualize and memorize stuff until I, repeat it or put it in writing. So short team old, but I have no problem with this one. It's what I think I need if I want to get better.
Yeah, no, that's pretty funny though.
They just came in today, so accountability check, putting this on the pod so that I can't just leave it sitting on my desk for a year.
Yeah, 2 weeks they got to be filled out.
Oh God, no! I'm streaming every day. You got to give me a little bit more time.
That's true. Yeah. We got the merge coming. You'll be active. Maybe that's a stream challenge. You have to while you're finishing up.
Oh my God!
Or a session.
For table, and I got to write down. Oh yeah, that'll be interesting.
Now we're talking.
Well, no, I don't want the note cards anywhere near me. I don't want to get accused of RTAing. So
RTA with the
RTAing, and I have a binder full of index cards. I'm trying to shuffle it there. Just imagine that.
There we go.
How do you get caught? Oh, you're streaming with note cards.
Yeah, no, we could clearly see it.
You got me.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the Not Pocket Fives website. You mentioned it a little bit before, and I also asked you about it on the Scoop Recap stream.
Yeah.
Seems like a super cool idea. Essentially, just a newer version of Pocket Fives, currently ranking people across the different PA sites. Is this something post merge that I'm assuming you want to do it for all of the sites across all the states?
Yes. Yeah. We kind of just wanted to make sure we got the soft launch live before Interstate. We obviously didn't have like a exact timeline, but the chirps were coming in a little bit louder that it might be soon. So we're like, hey, even if it's not perfect, if it's not exactly what we want, let's get it out there, get it out in the community a little bit. And I don't think we need to make it into a forum like the old Pocket Fives. I feel like Discord has more than replaced that it's not really necessary anymore. Discord's more active than Pocket Fives was on most days anyway. So I think that part of the niche has already been filled. But to get a fun way to bring the competitiveness of the series leaderboards and the series challenge just for all the time. We don't have monthly leaderboards on any of the sites anymore like we did back in the day. And I think, tracking things like Triple Crown wins, which used to mean a lot in the community, and giving people, badges on their profiles for, X amount of earnings, X amount of triple crowns, X amount of monthly leaderboard wins is, a very cool and natural way to, I don't want to say measure poker, but bring the community together and add a little bit of competitiveness to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a huge fan of it. I mentioned on some of the previous podcasts that I did debate in high school, and there was a kind of similar leaderboard ranking system. Like someone made like an ELO formula, and it had kind of all like the whatever thousands of teams and like little scores across to each person. And it's pretty motivating, kind of being able to see where you're at and see where other people are at and try to get to it. But there was some pretty strong discourse about rankings kind of being more of like a like not necessarily beneficial for like someone who's trying to improve at poker or improve in their aspect, whatever it is, because it kind of is leaning into comparing yourself to others, distracts you a little bit, maybe gives you the wrong motivations for certain things. What's kind of your take on that? Because I don't think I necessarily agree with that, but I also see merit to it.
Yeah, I know. I think I understand both sides of this, or I can see where both sides are coming from. My take would be this is infinitely better than Sharkscope, which is strictly dollar in, dollar out, which could definitely demotivate some people and doesn't seem like a very fun or natural way to compare yourself. Mm-hmm. Whereas this one is going to be, it's not going to be volume based. We're going to cap the number of qualified scores that you can have, and I think having the triple crowns at different buy-in levels. Yeah, I know. It hurts me too, but it's nice that you're if you want a monthly leaderboard win, you don't have to play 31 days. You just need, I forget our number, 20 good scores, mm-hmm. and you're there. And I think like a month to month or a rolling leaderboard is. I feel like it's going to be hard for that to be a negative. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, my best finish on the monthly was 28th in the U.S. Since pretend we're already in the regulated, interstate market, and mm-hmm. I'm really happy. It's like, hey, let's just try to improve that next month, and it's a goal that's achievable through other goals. Like it's kind of like you stick to the process, and that'll fix itself anyway. And it's hard for me to see the negatives in something like that.
Yeah, definitely. For when what you guys are picturing post merge, because right now the website is shows like the past 7 days, current month, last month. Is post merge the goal to kind of show it for all the states combined and then have people opt in to player groups to kind of show, or would it still be an opt-in basically for the player groups?
Yeah, I think it still needs to be an opt-in, because we can't just randomly like out people, even if I know who they are on all three sites. Like it's got to be something you opt into, and I don't want it to be a I don't. Originally they were like, oh, why don't we just show the top screen name for each site? I'm like, yeah. That kind of doesn't do it to me, because you want to compete against people. You don't want to compete against names. So I think making it more personal and having the people join the community first to be opted in makes it a little bit more natural.
Yeah, that is a tough balance. I definitely like the...
Yeah, and besides, they have Sharkscope anyway. Like if they really cared, if they want to, check the leaderboard rankings like that. But I think placing emphasis on winning tournaments where, you could win a tournament for $1,000 and it's worth more points than the person who got sixth in a 1K. You know what I mean? Like there's a nice little balance that I think, I don't quite understand how the exact Pocket Fives formula works, but I know that it's not volume heavy oriented, and it's rewards winning, and placement comes like a little bit after that. And I think that's nice. And maybe in the future we can, everybody loves the fantasy formula now, but another goal is to be able to set up your own contests and competitions on there. So like, say you and 5 friends want to do like a 5-day challenge, like play every tournament. Let's see, who does the best. We have your 5 names on the separate little contest page. You guys tell us what you want. We put it up there, and you track your scores that way. And you don't need to do anything because the scores are rolling in automatically. Which will be, a lot easier on like the WTRs and Whitesmiths of the community who are constantly plugging all that shit in manually.
Yeah, volunteering their time to to play with the
Yeah.
little prop bets.
So, not saying we're ditching the fantasy, but like it could be a nice alternative. And then, the prop bet tracking that what he does will just be, hopefully we'll be able to be doing the website.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun things to be able to do here. I'm sure you guys are kind of cooking up ideas all the time.
Yeah, it's just tough to actually do them. I'm very limited in what I know about the programming and the back end of this. So I'm kind of more the idea man. It's like, hey, Lavin, you think of anything for XXX? And I got to try to throw something out or brainstorm something. So I'm more of the just, sit in the corner, don't fuck anything up, and promote it when you get a chance.
Hey, you make some like cool trophies for us, and then run like a little series. Just be like, all right, this random week, everyone's gonna grind.
Yeah.
Winner gets like a fancy trophy of like, I don't know.
Oh hell yeah, dude! I looked up the price of trophies. They're not expensive. Like I kind of. Yeah, you can get expensive if you want it, but like I clicked on a random page for Oh yeah. I looked on ones for like fantasy football leagues. I'm like, you're telling me like for $25 we can get a trophy or like a belt that somebody can wear? Like that's awesome. And like I think it's that's a whole different subject, but I think the rewarding people with trophies or sunglasses or whatever else they've done in the past is always good and never a negative. So I wish sites did more of that.
Yeah, I am embarrassingly excited to get my BetMGM jersey, and there's no meaning for it. I don't play basketball. I don't really follow basketball that much anymore, but I think just having those little things is very fun.
It's cool, but on the same line, I do enjoy that WSOP does track their wins across series, and none of the other sites have found a way to just copy their formula. Like it feels like such a basic goal of poker players to compete and compare. So it's got a little on topic, but to do it across time, it's and to I just can't believe that like Stars hasn't found like a. I don't want to say like obviously the Scoop and Coop are different. They're twice or once a year each, and I can't believe they haven't found like a rolling series that they track whoever wins the events and like make a leaderboard out of it or give a little badge on the person's name. It just feels so easy to implement, and everybody's missing it. I know MGM is fantastic with the series and the leaderboards and the trophies and the jerseys and the other jerseys, and I think they've done hockey, basketball, football, and now maybe I'm missing one, but there's still no like tracking of it. There's no page of whoever's won the most, and it just feels very easy for the sites to implement and track, and everybody except WSOP, which I think is the worst. They haven't figured out a way to do it yet.
It's pretty silly that the only like historical records you can find of like Scoop and Coop results is, I mean, sometimes there'll be a Poker News article about it, but usually it's just a fantasy sheet that WTR is.
It's WTR is the hero that we didn't know we need, and that's it. Like that's all we have, and it's crazy. We can't see past leaderboards. We can't see past like Stars leaderboards. Like there's a tab for archived ones, and it's never been a thing. Like it's clearly there. They're ready for it, and it's such a letdown to see sites swing and miss on something that you would think would be easy to track. I'm assuming like even going back now, they still have tracking records of everything we've played. You could figure out what people have won. You know what I mean? I don't want to say like people should be rewarded, after the event, but like it seems like something that if any of the sites are watching this, they come on, get something together for us.
Yeah, I mean, Not Pocket Fives are just going to take over if all the other sites aren't going to do it individually. So like,
we've already looked at cool ways to put little badges on people in Discord. So if you link your Discord name to the site, possibly instead of like doing the email address login, if we can somehow find a way to link the Discord to it, and then next to your name when you win a Triple Crown, you get a little crown there. You get you won your 7th Triple Crown. There's a crown with a 7 next to it, or a leaderboard. You know what I mean? There's so many easy ways to that. Well, I don't know how easy it's going to be with Discord, but we're looking into that. We're gonna try to fill that niche that we think needs to be filled.
That's great to hear. I'm pretty pumped. I would definitely grind out a lot of these little mini competitions and play for the trophies and the leaderboards on on the site. So it sounds like you guys got a lot planned there, which is cool.
Yeah, maybe a fanny pack from Lavin. I think that was supposed to go out to somebody, and I missed that. But we'll find ways to make things fun, and if I can find a way to integrate that with streaming, even better.
Yeah, sounds like we might see you streaming a bit soon. So I'll be excited to tap in.
Hopefully, I find a bag at Philly Live tonight, so I can come home tomorrow and start working on the stream setup.
Oh, is that the 1K is tonight? Right?
Yeah, today's the first day of the Stars Live event.
Yeah, I saw some of the discussion about it. I haven't been following too much, but I didn't even realize the 2200 FT was today until like yesterday. Like I feel like the advertising for this has been pretty poor, but that's a whole nother thing.
I don't think there's been any advertising.
Yeah, they're trying.
So
maybe things will get better after the merge.
Of course, today, after I mentioned that to someone else, I got a little ad on my Instagram feed for Poker Stars Philly Live, and I'm like, okay, all right, you guys are trying. Maybe not day of to advertise, but like at least I saw something. So
there's something there. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Thank you, Lavin, for hopping on the podcast. Any shout outs you want to give before we?
No, I mean, thank you for having me, although I'm a little upset that I was the next guest because that's one less one of these podcasts for me to watch, and I have to wait even longer for the next one, but thank you for having me on.
Of course. Well, now that Scoop's over, maybe I'll try to squeeze in one, but it might be hard to get me to not play during the weeks.
First week of I know. So I mean, all that talk about the website, and it's like, well, shit, I need to play too. We're gonna try to find a way to balance and work on that too.
Give us a month, and then we'll settle in.
Yeah, well, then you got WSOP, and like the poker schedule just keeps on rolling, man. If you want to do projects, like you need to be a type A sort of person, man. It's tough.
Never ending. All right, well, we'll see what happens. Cool.
No, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course.